Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I got a cool project today that might go really well or really bad. I don't know, we'll see. Requires that we drill the hood. So that's always kind of scary. What we will be installing are a set of Aerocatch latches. You may or may not have seen them on the record temp STI at the Nürburgring, as well as the Isle of Man TT STI. They have them on the front of the hoods, right? And while they look really cool, I think one of the things that you get out of using these hood latches is the removal of the hood latch support that sits in front of the radiator. And that does block, I don't know, maybe 20% of the radiator from airflow. And I don't think that the airflow to the radiator on these cars is that good to begin with. So I'm hoping by getting rid of the factory hood latch, we improve airflow to the radiator. I'll show you what tools I'm going to use here in a second. I want to give you a better idea of what we're removing, because I'm not going to be taking it off today. I won't be removing the hood latch support today. I'm going to do that when the actual Killer Bee radiator shows up. So hoping that I can do it from the backside and not have to remove the bumper, because I'm kind of lazy, but we'll see. But let me show you what I'm trying to accomplish here, so you get a better understanding of why I'm doing it. And then I will need to swap this hood off, because this is the stock hood, and the hood with the hood louvers is over there, and that's the one I want to do all the drilling on. So let me go ahead and show you what I'm looking at, or what I'm trying to get rid of with the Aerocatches today. Okay, so we're going to go handheld here, and hopefully it's not too shaky, but I want to show you what we're looking at. Alright, so there's a radiator behind the grill, and if you can see over here to the left, there's a very large Y-shaped sheet of metal that is completely blocking the radiator. It has no holes to allow air to flow through, and it is just blocking a very large portion of the radiator, and I'm hoping we can remove that by using the latches. Over here I've got the oil cooler, right, and it runs right next to the edge of that hood latch support. And over there to the left, you can see there's only maybe 2 inches of radiator surface before it ends. So there's quite a bit of stuff back here that's blocking the radiator. On top of that, below here is your crash beam, which is very large, which is why you have such a large portion of plastic in the bumper here. And then if we go down here, you can kind of tell this lower grill, only half of it is actual radiator. There's like a lip here that is not your radiator, and you can see down here, there again is that latch support, right? And it's blocking a fair amount of the radiator as well. So there's not that much surface area of the radiator that's actually exposed to keep this car cool at the track, which is one of the problems we're having, which is why we got the Killer Bee radiator, which will be here in about a week. But I'm hoping by removing this hood latch support, we can improve the amount of surface area that's actually being hit by cold air. So let me go get all the tools that I'll be using here and kind of give you the rundown and the strategy of what we're going to do. All right, so this is the hood latch. Pretty sweet. This is the locking version, so there's keys in there. And you pop the button or push the button to release the latch, and then you flip it up and that releases the pin. It's pretty nice. I think I will be installing it in this direction. That way, if for whatever reason the hood latches are popped up, I should be able to see it from inside the car. And I might put something red over here, so if I see red at the front of the hood, I know these latches are not closed. The shape of the hood latch is what is going to make installation difficult. It's not like the hood louvers where you drill 4 holes and you connect the holes. It's a little bit more difficult because of the oval shape. So what we're going to try to use are hole saws. And I'm hoping, I selected some hole saws that are very close to the two ends of the latch, the two circular or radiuses of the latch. And they're about 1 millimeter shy in diameter. Or at least these hole saws are. So hopefully there's not too much to clean up after I cut them. And then the idea would be to draw a line. I'd cut the 2 holes first, then draw a line, and then use the multi-tool like we did for the hood louvers to cut a straight line between the 2 outside radiuses of the holes. Right, and then we can use a Dremel and kind of clean up the lines and hope these fit just right. I think it's a little bit more difficult. There's probably a little bit more precision required for this installation, but we'll give it a shot and we'll see what happens here. The first thing I'm going to do is determine the correct places on the hood to drill by installing the studs, or at least temporarily installing the hood pins or the hood studs in these 2 positions right on either side of the radiator support, and then marking them off on the hood and then drilling down. We'll start with one and we'll see how that goes, or at least one side, and see how that goes. But right now, the first thing I got to do is swap the hoods. So give me a second here as I get my girlfriend to help me with the hood swap. Okay guys, so the hood with the louvers is on, and actually it's not aligned appropriately to the car. The panel gap on one side is bigger than the other, but whatever, who cares? I'm way too lazy to freaking fix it. Okay, so I have the hood pin on, and I think this is the hole I'm going to use. It's already on the radiator support. I don't have to drill anything. And if you look at the photos of the RA STI and the Isle of Man STI, this is also the hole that they chose to use. And my guess is because 1, the hole's already there, and 2, it's already angled. So if you look at the hood on the car, where you'll be installing the hood latch, it's not flat. It's got a curve to it. And these latches don't have, you know, a very wide tolerance for not being aligned appropriately. So it's nice that this radiator support also has a similar curve to it, which should probably help when we bring this down and the latch itself is not exactly flat, right? So it's more in line with the curve of the support. And if I go ahead and put the latch on, it kind of gives you an idea of what you have to work with here. This is not too bad. So I think that's the hole I'm going to use. One of the problems that I have right now is how do I make sure that I'm in the same position on both sides? And so these holes are a little bit, you know, they're oblong. They're not exactly a straight hole. So I can I've got some room for error here. But the problem is if I go from full left to full right and I have a problem with the alignment on the hood latch on the hood, if I'm full right and I need to go more right, I can't, right? So ideally I would go shoot for the center, and that would give me some adjustment to either side. But then center is a little vague and I don't know exactly where that is, so it might be misaligned on both sides of the car. So I think what I'm going to do is going to go full inside on both sides, and then just pray to God I don't have a misalignment issue and that I drill everything correctly. So what I'm going to do here is I've got nuts on both sides of this so I can tighten this stud nice and tight, and I'm going to put some type of marking compound on the top, bring the hood down, see where it makes contact, and then drill my first hole. And then also find something to cover the engine bay, because we're going to have metal shavings falling in and I don't want that screwing anything up. So let's go ahead and start. Okay, so pull the camera out here so you guys get a better angle of what's about to happen. I am going to try to mark this pin just the very top of the pin with some cutting wax that I have here. And then I'm going to bring the hood down and see where it touches. And that'll be where I drill my hole. So I've got the pin adjusted so I can just barely close the hood. Right, and I have to pull the latch in to bring the hood closer. Pull it back up. And there we are. I've got a nice mark there that I can drill in. So I'm going to use a small bit to start with, progressively get bigger, and then use one of the hole saws. Right now what I'm going to do is try to get, I think I've got a tarp over there, I'm going to lay over this to catch any bits that might fall down. I don't have anything better than a tarp, so that's what we're going to use. Okay, so hopefully that is exposed right. It's a little bit tough shooting inside the garage with the light outside. But here's my mark. Got a really tiny bit here. And what I want to do is not punch all the way through. So all I want to do is get my first hole. Then I want to bring this back down again with the stud, touch the inside, which would be kind of the second skin, mark that hole again, and then drill that hole. That way I get it correct. So let me just start with this first one, and it's just going to be a small hole. Didn't get the other side, I don't think. All right. Okay, next is to use a hole saw. And I actually got a couple different size hole saws I can use. More than I showed you guys earlier. And I think I'm going to use this bad boy. Let's see. It's pretty easy. Okay, so that's the inside hole, right? And I'll go ahead and clean this up later. This has done a good job. Maybe just want to knock off whatever I can onto this right now. So now what I'm going to do is bring the hood back down onto the stud, and again see where that touches the inside skin. This is just when you do it in two different steps. I think you're just probably ensuring the chances that the stud, you're drilling that final hole, the big hole, the right way, in the right spot, or at least as close as possible. So I'm going to take this tarp off, mark it, close it, see where the mark is, and then drill a small hole out the top. Okay, so moment of truth here. Assuming I didn't booger the hole up, the stud should go into the hole, I hope. Which it looks like it does, and as long as the stud is short, I should be able to close this. I tried it earlier. I wouldn't have pushed it if I didn't know, or tried to close it if I didn't know. Okay, so it definitely clears the hole, which is great. So because the hood didn't hit the stud or the hood pin, I probably need to make it longer. So go ahead and turn this out. Make it taller. Okay, let's try that here. And what I want it to do is hit. There we go. So it's hitting. So I had to release the latch here to bring the hood lower down. And now it's hitting that stud. And it looks like I got a good amount of room So I'm going to mark this now. Okay, so we ran into a problem, and the problem is this stud is not long enough to hit the hood on the inside. Almost. So what I did was I've got it all the way to its maximum height. I had my girlfriend come out, and she was holding the hood latch from the inside, holding it open, and I would push on the hood slightly and let it drop in, just enough to hit the stud. So if you do this on your car, that's probably something that you've got to have someone help you with. It just barely worked, but I can see, and I also switched to a red grease so I could better see it in the hole because there's not so much light. So I've got the hole in there now, and I'm going to drill the small pilot hole to get us started. And first things first, clean off the grease, put the tarp back on. All right, tarp is back on. Got a headlamp here. And have to use a little bit bigger of a bit here because it's deeper and my small bit won't reach. Okay, so I've removed the stud just in case, because at that point we've already used it for what it's supposed to do, which is to guide this hole. It's got some PPE on here, so it's kind of hard to see maybe. That's our hole. I'm going to use one size up on the bit, and then I'll use the hole saw. And so one of the big things to remember here is that this is the hole for the stud. And so the stud's gonna come through right here. The hole saw that I'm using is much smaller than the width of the latch. All right, so this is where the stud comes in, much smaller than the width of the latch. That way, you know, I'm giving myself a margin of error because I'm going to make a rather large hole here. And if I make too big of a hole that's bigger than the width of the latch, then, you know, that's not ideal. I think this is probably going to be the safest way to do it. So here we go. We're going to make another freaking hole in the hood. Pray to God this is the right way to do it. And let's see, the stud's gonna come up this way. All right, there's a hole. All right, so let me get something to clean this off because I don't want to have, I want to get as much of the metal shavings as I can. Maybe we'll get the shot back here, suck this all up. Then I'll put the stud back in and we'll take a shot and show you how it comes up through the hood. All right, so I literally have the stud as high as it'll go. It's barely catching the nuts, or at least like the nut on the backside. And I can kind of take some time here. Although I can't close the latch because it's not tall enough, I can see the hole in the stud and I can see the pin in the latch. And so now I can take the time to kind of figure out the angle that I want. You know, do I want something more angled like this? Do I want something more, maybe something more parallel with the center line of the car? This is subjective. The other challenge you're gonna have here is being able to match it on both sides. And I think the easiest thing to do is to try to match the line that's in the hood. So there is a line that runs like from here up. So what I'll probably do is try to match that. So I'm gonna have to play with the stud a little bit. I'll go back and forth and do that. And then once I have that, and I've got the backing plate flipped over, I'll pull the latch out and then use a Sharpie to trace this inside of the backing plate. And that'll give me an idea, or that'll help me figure out where I'm supposed to drill with my next 2 hole saws. So give me some time here. Let me work on positioning the stud at the correct angle to match essentially this line right here. And then we'll do some tracing and then do some more cutting. All right, so I've got my protective stuff on, and I've done my best to mark off where I think I need to drill. I know that sounds really bad. So it's a curved surface, which makes it difficult, and I would ideally want to use my hole saw as a center punch to kind of line stuff up here and kind of punch it, which I'll probably do here. That looks pretty good. And then do a little bit of drilling. Yeah. So here we go. Got my small bits. I wish this was a little more precise, but it isn't. So hopefully we don't screw this up too bad. Whoops. Yeah, so that one just might be dull. All right, so maybe we'll work my way up here. Oh yeah, dude, right on the lines. All right, so let me clean this all up. Then we'll work on the hole at the top. Okay. So, vacuumed all that stuff up. Now I gotta move over to this hole saw. And that's gonna go another, again, kind of like eyeballing. I think this one I've got a little more, might have a little more margin of error maybe. Let's see, how good am I there? Pretty much is lining up to the outline there. Looks pretty good. So I'm gonna mark that here. Right there. Get my drill again. Pretty good. Looks pretty good. All right. Cool. And pretty good. Actually, we're a little off to the left here. But I'm going to draw the line, redraw the lines here. Or actually, yeah, redraw the lines from the edge to edge. Then cut it here with the multi-tool. So let me clean this up, redraw the lines. Hopefully we're not too far off and that we have a little bit of margin for error here. And then try to match it all on the other side. Here we go. So I've redrawn my lines. The lines go to the outside edges of both the circles. Gonna try to cut on the inside of my line. Give me a little bit of room for like a margin of error there. Then what I can do is come back with the Dremel sander and then kind of work everything to make it fit. But the idea here is to take off as much material as I can. Oops, nicked it. Oh well. Okay, clean this up. And then we'll test fit and Dremel. Okay, so I've got my knockoff Dremel, and I'm happy to report it's a pretty close fit already right off the bat. So clean it up, make sure we can slide it in, then test it with the stud and make sure everything's okay and lines up correctly, and then we can drill the final holes to lock everything down. Right now I just want to get around this. Oh yeah. Sweet. Okay, so clean this all up again, take all that stuff out, and then I think what we'll do is put the stud in and then test fit and make sure this clears the stud, that it engages everything correctly and it's smooth. That's done. Then we can punch the holes and finally mount this side of the Aerocatch. So hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so the stud's in. Actually, I think it's adjusted to the wrong height here. The stud's in, but it's slightly off. It's slightly misaligned. So the hood pin comes through just fine. Oh, I had to cut this portion off of the latch, and that's totally fine. Aerocatch tells you that's okay to do. Stud comes in fine. The issue here is that we're off ever so slightly. Right, so if I push the stud over, you know, maybe like 3 or 4 millimeters, it latches. There's definitely, I think, if we take this bracket and we look at it here, what I'm looking at is the distance between the hole and the edge of the bracket, right? Because if we wanted to, say, slide this over, we only have so much room before we have problems with drilling holes for the screws, right? And honestly, there's not much there we can do. I mean, if we move it like that, there's a chance we can get away with it, it looks like. Yeah. But is that enough? I'm not sure. So I think it's going to be a combination of things. I think we're going to have to sand off or grind off a little bit more on this side. And then on the inside, we're going to have to work with the mounting of the stud. So I went full inwards, so I have no room for adjustment. And so I'm going to need to kind of grind down a little bit on this radiator support in this direction so I can move the stud over. So a combination of the two should get me to where I need to be. Let me get to work here, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so a little bit of clearancing over here on this side, a little bit on the inside, just a tad, not too much. And then pulling on the stud a little bit to bend the radiator support ever so slightly. Between those three things, we got a latch that works. And it's funny, you can actually like kind of move this around, the stud around, to make everything fit. So I guess that might be by design, I'm not sure. But yeah, it works, everything, it's pretty smooth. So the next thing is going to be marking these six holes, drilling them, and then finally securing the backing plate from the back, which a lot of people cut like giant holes on the back side of the hood. But I've been told you can kind of weasel this bad boy in and make it work. It might just take a little bit of finagling. So we'll try that now and see how that goes. All right, so I've got the 6 holes all sharpied out and a little side part of my hood. Oopsies, I'll get that later. I'm gonna pop the hood, lay the protective stuff back down, and then start drilling. Okay, so holes are drilled, and this one's close to the very edge of this material, but we're okay. Let's see here, where did I put all that hardware? Okay, so the next step, I've already vacuumed everything up, is we slide this in like so, and then you tighten everything down. Oh, need to get it back out. And the tricky part is, so there are nylocks that you have to slip in. Will they stay in there? Oh yeah, they kind of stay in there. All right, let's do that. So we'll put all the nylocks in, like so, right? So they're locked in. Then I'll slide this under in here like that. And I think what we're gonna try to do is use the hole underneath to kind of hold this piece and screw this in. So I'm doing this by hand because I don't want to like crank on it too hard. A couple things will happen if you do that. You could snap the bolt or whatnot, or the nut, or the screw, or machine screw, whatever you want to call it. Two, I don't want to pull up on the hood and deform it too badly. So that's pretty snug. With the nylocks, I doubt they're going to be coming loose. That's it. So obviously got to reinstall the stud, do some adjustments and whatnot. But it's on. Now I'm going to do the other side. It's getting late, so probably not going to record that because it'll take too long. But this is how you do it. Maybe I'll do a time lapse of the other side. But yeah, not too shabby. Obviously the car is a mess and it needs to get washed. But whatever, no big deal. Cool. Okay guys, it's the next day here, and the left side has been installed. Pretty straightforward. The only thing I ran into was I lost a nut that fell off the bracket and went somewhere deep inside the hood. Luckily, although these are stainless, they're magnetic. So I guess it's like some stainless stuff is and isn't magnetic, but these ones are. So you can grab a big magnet. I used one of these pull magnets and managed to pull the nut to a hole in the hood and got it out. I also washed the hood, so it's all wet here, but I tried to get all of the metallic shavings out of the hood because there is areas between the two skins of the hood that they can get stuck in. The last things we have to do are install these rubber bumpers, and I think they're designed to help carry the weight of the hood or maybe help pop the hood up. I'm not 100% sure. Should probably read the instructions here. But I think you're supposed to install these. They tell you to install these. Some cars have them, some cars don't. We'll see what happens here. We'll try it out. The other thing is to lock these down. So I'm going to use some Loctite to keep it from sliding around or vibrating loose. And then also for the passenger side, there is this rubber material that sits on the hood up here. You may or may not see this, but this is the rubber material that I'm talking about. It sits up on the hood, and I think it presses down and creates a seal around the intake. This may or may not be an issue with the stud because it like literally is right there. So we're gonna have to play around with that and see if we can get a fix for that. But first things first, I'm going to take this stud off, measure it real quick so I know the rough height, so it's quicker for me to get back to the right height for the latch, and install these bumpers, and then Loctite everything down. Okay, one last thing here. So this is the gasket that I was talking about earlier. I think it sits on top of the intake duct and tries to create a seal so that the air is going into the intake. As you can see here, it comes very close to this hole that the stud runs through. In fact, if I haven't zip tied it back, it would cover that, and the stud would hit this part of the gasket, and you might break the stud or tear the gasket or something like that. And ideally, we want to keep this here, right? Subaru put this here for a reason. So what I've done here is, one, I've cut a slit into the gasket using a razor blade, and then two, I've slipped a zip tie through this hole and reached in and grabbed it from this side and then tighten it through. And that holds the gasket back just enough so that when you close the hood, the stud runs through and doesn't hit the gasket. So that's one other fix that you'll need to keep an eye on, and hopefully that helps you out. All right, so I removed the stud, put the rubber bumper on, and not entirely sure what it does. We do have the OEM bumper there, so maybe there's a chance we don't need this. What I'll probably do is send Aerocatch an email and try to understand what the function of this bumper is and whether or not it's different from this one, but it's too short. You close the hood and it doesn't even come close to sitting on this. So not exactly sure what's going on there. I'm gonna leave it there for now. Probably install the one on the other side as well. The last thing to do here is to apply Loctite to the nuts so nothing moves. Double check the angle to the hood latch as well as the height, and tighten everything down. And I think that is it. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. And I imagine you guys don't really need to see that. But otherwise, the hood latches are installed. Oh, it's kind of loose here. The hood latches are installed, and that's it. So hopefully you guys find this video helpful, especially if you guys are looking to do these Aerocatch latches yourself. As always, if you have questions or concerns, don't hesitate to ask. And as always, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you at the next video. Take care, guys.